Here I am in the Gap. I have never been to the Gap before, so this is going to be a real learning curve for me. Answer the first question, why is it called the Gap? It's called the Gap because there is a gap in the Taylor Range Mountains, which the Enoggera Creek, which is right down there, cut through many millions of years ago. So that's why it's called the Gap. There's a gap in the mountains. Let's move on. On a map, the Gap looks more like it's a big bowl, like someone's come along and just scooped out the landscape and left this hollow. The mountains that surround the Gap date from the late Devonian. That's about 382 to 323 million years ago. Most of the suburb, though, the land under here where I'm standing, this is late Triassic rock, about 251 to 201 million years ago. This was a huge eruption of magma under the ground, forced its way up towards the surface but didn't break the surface. It remained deep underground. Over many millions of years, the landscape around here has eroded down, and as it's eroded down, the rock underneath has been exposed. That's why when you look on a geologic map of this area, you get two different kinds. You get the rock that this area is built on, that I'm standing on, surrounded by the earlier late Devonian rock. It is quite possible that sections of Waterworks Road were originally an indigenous pathway leading up to Mount Cootha. And I made a video about Mount Cootha and its significance to the indigenous people of the area. And then in the sort of 1840s, 1850s, you get timber getters coming up here, and they would have followed the indigenous pathway to get to where all the good stands of forest pine were and cedar, all of those sort of things. So Waterworks Road originally probably an indigenous trackway, then the timber getters used it, and then it was used to beat a path up to the new dam that they wanted to build. The trees that the timber getters were cutting were sent via this road down to the sawmills in Brisbane. At that time, before the dam was built, Waterworks Road was simply known as the Gap Road. Your personal data being hacked and sold online is a very real and ever-increasing problem. Nobody wants their private details made public. What happens is, whenever you are using a phone or tablet or some other device, you are broadcasting an enormous amount of information that can be monitored and hacked. I mean, really, using the internet without a VPN, a virtual protection network, is like walking around with a see-through backpack. Everyone can see what you're carrying. That's where Private Internet Access VPN can help. It's an app that protects you and all your devices from malware, trackers, scammers, and even in some countries, your own government. And Private Internet Access has proven in court that they do not store your data. So how does it work? It's very simple. Private Internet Access routes your internet access through their encrypting servers, keeping it safe and private. And as someone who loves to travel, having a subscription with Private Internet Access gives me peace of mind that no matter where I am in the world connecting to the Wi-Fi, whether it's a hotel, restaurant, or some far-off bar, I know that my online activity is being shielded from scammers and crooks. But it's not just your online protection that Private Internet Access offer. It also allows you to change your IP address so that you can access websites and watch movies that may not be available in your country. Sites like Disney+, Netflix and BBC iPlayer have different content specific to different countries. But Private Internet Access enables you to access them all. For example, on a recent holiday, I wanted to watch one of my favourite movies, Before Sunrise, and I found it on Private Internet Access. I couldn't have been happier. This is how it works. Log into the app on whichever device you are using. Private Internet Access allows you to connect to a server where the content you want to watch is allowed. I knew that Before Sunrise was available on Netflix in Australia, but as I was overseas, the country I was in didn't have that movie. So I launched the app and clicked the arrow here. Below that are the Quick Connect options. Click the arrow beside the automatic server. You'll then see a list of servers Private Internet Access has. I found the Australian server and chose that. Once done, the server now believes I'm in Australia, thus allowing me to watch the movie. Private internet access is available on lots of platforms including macOS, Windows, Linux, Android, and they have servers in 91 countries. And the one subscription can be used to protect as many of your devices as you need. Private internet access offer 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 customer support. And for viewers of this channel, by using your link, you can grab an 83% discount on private internet access. That's just $2.03 a month, and you can get 4 months completely free. Go to www.piavpn.com/walkaboutwithrob or just click the link in the description to get started. And thanks again to Private Internet Access for sponsoring this video.
Darby McGrath is said to be the first European settler in the Gap area. Due to the logging by the timber getters, some areas of land had been cleared for agriculture. Darby ran a cattle and sheep station known as the Gap Station. A little later, James Warner surveyed the first blocks of freehold land. The first sale of freehold land occurred on the 1st of September 1856.
There's the dam wall. No, actually, I really do like it. Just behind me there is the Enoggera Reservoir. The dam itself was built between 1864 and 1866. And that's just over there in the distance that way. The planning and construction of this dam really was an extraordinary engineering feat, especially for that time, because you've got to remember when this was begun in 1864, Queensland had only separated from New South Wales 5 years earlier. This was a major undertaking. That's why Waterworks Road is called Waterworks Road. It was simply the road leading from Brisbane to the waterworks at the Enoggera Dam. Pretty basic stuff. Those travelling to the dam from Brisbane in the mid-late 19th century, would stop off at Enoggera Creek, which is just over there, Walton Bridge is over there, and they would have a rest. And there they would have some brandy. So Enoggera Creek, at least in this area, was known as Brandy and Water Creek.
On the 31st of January 1866, there was an inspection of the works at the new dam by a party of distinguished gentlemen and some politicians. As part of the proceedings, it was decided to mark the occasion by setting off a salute using small explosives. Unfortunately, the man hired to set off the ordnance, a Mr. James Thompson, almost blew himself up when the explosives went off at the wrong time.
They sure are. Welcome to Walkabout Creek Discovery Centre. And very handy map here. I wonder what terrifying creatures are awaiting me here.
I
think we've got a bit of a copyright infringement here. Wow. The virtual lookout. Look at that. This is nice. Look at this. Little tiny open air theatre. Can this cockpit hold the vasty fields of France? Or may we cram within this wooden O the very casks that did affright the air at Agincourt? Oh, pardon, but let us ciphers to this great account on your imaginary forces work, for 'tis now your thoughts that must deck our king. Carry them here and there, jumping all times, turning the accomplishment of many years into an hourglass. For the which supply, admit me chorus to this history. Who? Prologue-like? Your humble patience pray, gently to hear, kindly to judge. Our play! Oh. Dogs are banned here, but they don't say anything about cats. Should have brought the cat. It is a leopard. Actually, I wasn't really walking past then. I just put the camera down and then walk past it and pretend that I'm actually going somewhere. It was clear very early on during the Moreton Bay Penal Settlement that water was going to be an issue. To begin with, the colonists used Wheat Creek, and that eventually was dammed near where Roma Street train station is today, and that reservoir became Brisbane's water source. Unfortunately, animals could get into it, they would fall over and drown in it, and waste went in there, and it was really grubby and horrible. So it was decided that they needed a more reliable and cleaner water source. So they started poking around to the areas west of Brisbane and came to this area. A local resident, Mr. Moses Adset, donated 2 acres of his land here for the establishment of the church and the cemetery. The church was a primitive Methodist church, and Mr. Adset was the very first person to be buried here in the cemetery. It's not a big cemetery, so I'll see if I can find him. There he is. Moses Adset, who after a long and painful illness departed this life on the 8th of February 1873. He was 45. It's interesting here that most of the graves face north. Traditionally, Christian burials will face east. They do get a nice view of the mountains over there. In 1881, Prince Albert and Prince George, who were on a tour of the Empire, picnicked here at Enoggera Dam. Just thought you should know. This here is Walton Bridge. It opened in 1900. It replaced an earlier wooden bridge on the site that was washed away in the 1893 floods. In 1900, the population of the Gap was still very, very small. This was a rural agricultural area. But the bridge connecting to this area is enormous. Massive, robust bridge, and it had to be. It's what we call an all-weather bridge. It had to survive the floods in this area to ensure ready access from Brisbane to the Enoggera Dam. You couldn't have a devastating flood, have your bridge damaged or washed away when you needed to get to the dam to check it, monitor it, and make repairs. The name Walton comes from a house just nearby, across the road, and the family had come from the little hamlet of Walton in Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire, so that's the name. So from Walton in Buckinghamshire to the house across the road to this bridge here. The house was just over there somewhere. It was built in the 1880s as a single-storey house, and then in 1900 it got its second story. I believe it was where the shops are now. It lasted until 1964, but was demolished due to damage from termites. In doing the research for this video, I found that understatement is very common here in the Gap. For example, the name of the suburb is taken from the simple fact that there's a gap in the mountains. The road over there is simply called Waterworks Road. It's named after a utility. Oh, and then there's Fish Creek. Well, you tend to get fish in creeks. Or Shopping Trolley Park.
By the early 20th century, there were 3 dams west of Brisbane: the Enoggera Reservoir, the Gold Creek Reservoir, and Cabbage Tree Creek Reservoir, today known as Lake Manchester. However, only a relatively small part of Brisbane was receiving reticulated water.
This kindergarten here was the site of the Gap School, the very first school to open in this area. It opened in 1912, and there's something, now that I think about it, what you can do when you're exploring an area, you're on foot, you're looking around, you got to pay attention to everything: the lie of the land, the style of the houses, the age of the trees, what sort of trees they are. But also another thing to keep an eye out for, and this would seem very, very obvious, but you're looking for signs. I don't mean, a sign from heaven, because you're not going to get one. Look at the street signs. In this case, School Road is right ahead of me. The school is gone, but the name of the street remains.
Irene Anna Payton from the Gap became the first woman in Australia to graduate in law. She was admitted to the bar in Victoria and the High Court in 1914.
This here is Settlement Road, one of the most important and historic roads in the Gap area. This land previously belonged to a guy called John Friedrich McDougall, and in 1919 413 acres of his land was resumed. That meant it was taken away from him for another purpose, and that purpose was to create small farms for returning soldiers from World War I. 42 farm plots were established in this area. So the intention was to give these soldiers a break, to help them get a fresh start from the horrors of war, and they were given the land up here. It wasn't a great success here, nor was it a great success in other areas where it was introduced. It also happened down in Sunnybank. The soldiers who came here to farm the land either didn't have any farming experience at all. Secondly, the plots were probably too small to make a living out of it. And also the soldiers themselves, they were still coming to terms with the horrors of the war, and many of them just could not make a go of it. They couldn't suddenly start a whole new life and a whole new career. Out of the 42 soldier farms in this area, I think something like 5 carried on. The rest, the soldiers just, their families packed up and moved on. Just while I'm here no, that's not a magpie. While I'm here on Settlement Road, the road originally turned right and went up this way. This is Kilbowie Street. Going up that way, up the hill up there. That's where the road originally went in the 1950s. The road was extended up to Sanford Road at Capera. So if you're going to Capera, you went along Kilbowie Street. Just found another plaque here. This is the Royal Society for the Prevention of Birds. Just found this very interesting little art installation on the corner of Waterworks Road and Jevon Street. These pillars, each one is different. It's about the people, the location, flora. They're really nice, really well made, and the interesting little plaques telling you what each pillar is all about. It really shows pride in their suburb that they went to the effort and the time and the expense to make these. Fascinating.
By now, the Gap had become a huge supplier of fruit and vegetables to Brisbane, many of which were sold at the Roma Street markets. (1928) Kerr's Aberdeen Quarry. This is on the side of where the Gap Tavern is, just behind me there. Just coming up on the Gap High School. There it is. Gap State High School. Across the road, somewhere over there, that was the site of searchlights, American military searchlights during World War II. I couldn't tell you the exact spot where they were, but they're over there somewhere. It was in 1976 that the height of the dam, which is just behind me, was raised by 7 metres and a spillway was added. That was the spillway just there.
here I am down on Enoggera Creek. The reason why I'm trying to get across it is because just over that way somewhere is apparently a tree that's about 370 years old. Brushbox, I think it's called. Before the dam was built, the creek generally flowed much stronger and a bit higher. It's a bit unstable. No, that's an unstable rock. If I go there and make a leap there, I did it. I did it. Take that, Enoggera Creek. I haven't been able to find that old tree yet. According to the photo I saw, it's a pretty gnarly looking tree. I mean gnarly, not in terms of, hey dude, someone's tooting at me. Yeah, it's not like, oh gnarly dude. It's not that kind of gnarly tree. I can't find it. No, I couldn't find it. Take my word for it, it's in there somewhere. It was on the 16th of November 2008 that a massive storm slammed into the gap, causing enormous amount of damage, described as either a supercell or a tornado. So extreme and so unusual was this storm event that it attracted the attention of the American Meteorological Society, who wrote a detailed report of that storm event. Even today, apparently, when people in the gap meet or they meet someone new, they say, where were you in 2008 when the storm hit? It's like, where were you when man landed on the moon, or Kennedy was assassinated? Right, there we have it, my tour around the gap. One of the things I've noticed while on this journey is that the gap is either very, very noisy or very, very quiet. Waterworks Road never seems to let up. Except for now. But apart from the noise of the road, you have these beautiful quiet areas, these remnants of rainforest, and there's bushland and the Enoggera Creek and the dam, and beautiful parks here as well. So it really is a place of duality, noise and peace. So thank you very much for watching this little jaunt around the gap. Learnt a lot. I hope you got something from it as well. If you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting that like and the subscribe button. And I'll see you again on the next walk.